Hello ladies and gentlemen, 49 coming at you with another community podcast in preparation for the OUSA Dota League Season 1. If you have not already signed up, head on down to the OUSA Recreation Center, grab the forms, grab a few of your buddies and get into a team. So far I believe we have 17 teams that are looking to sign up, all of varying experience levels, so it should be a fun tournament coming on up. And we do have Season 2 coming up next semester. Quickly being drafted into a 5-man team matchmaking game with the boys from Horsemen of the Ruckus. So just going to quickly introduce them. We have their captain Ken Killer, also their mid player, their carry player Dumble D, Oh My Glob, their 5-position player, Computerized, otherwise known as Jamie, their 4-position player, and Andy, who is otherwise goes by Gaps, and I believe he's their offlaner. So far in terms of picks and bans, we have a first man Ember Spirit. This hero's been seeing a lot of usage in the competitive scene, and from the last few games he seems to be a high impact, high mobility hero, often used in the mid lane but can also function as a safe lane farmer. We've got first pick Nyx Assassin over on the Radiant side, as well as that Mirana, both very flexible heroes. Nyx Assassin can operate very well on an off lane as a solo 1v1, or on the tri lane as a support with that Impale and that Spike Carapace to make sure that he's able to control the enemy heroes. We've got the Mirana, who functions excellently in all 3 lanes. She can operate as a solo either in the mid or in the off lane. She can even go 1v3 using that leap to escape and leech EXP. She can roam, she can serve as a tri-lane carry, relying on that arrow for high burst damage to pick up a few heroes. On the Dire side, we do have the Slark and the Clockwork pickup. Looks like we're going to be seeing a farming Slark, and an offlane Clockwork. With that cog, especially with the creep equilibrium change, Clockwork is a very strong offlaner. However, as a mid hero, he does have unparalleled ganking potential, especially once he hits that level 6 with that 2000 range hook. He can easily move in to whatever lane he's happened to pick up the rune from and pick up a few kills. And so for the bans, we have the Ember Spirit, the Bristleback, as well as the Rubik. The Bristleback hasn't been banned as often lately with that nerf to his base damage, however is a very strong offlaner, can transition to a strong mid-game hero. Rubik is a bit of an unusual ban, not too sure what the preference is for there. The drawback with the Rubik is he's a very defensive support hero, particularly in a tri-lane. As a telekinesis is very strong, but his Fade Bolt doesn't really do enough damage in comparison to a few other support heroes, such as Vengeful Spirit with the Magic Missile, Crystal Maiden with the Crystal Nova, or even the Shadow Shaman with the Ether Shot. Over on the bans for the Dire side, we've got the Batrider first ban, very typical. Batrider is an extremely versatile hero. He could go into the mid lane, he can function in the off lane, he could even jungle and get that fast blink up. Once he does hit level 6, he is able to blink lasso, drag someone in the position, can force fights and screw up with the enemy initiation. Pugna ban is also rather self-explanatory. Pugna is an extremely strong hero that can function either in the mid lane or as a safe lane farmer. The Nether Ward does an extremely high amount of damage, especially against cast-heavy teams, as well as his Nether Blast, ensuring that you can quickly Death Ball, take a few towers.
10 seconds remaining.
We have the Death Prophet, which is unusual that King Killer has chosen to ban. This is one of his best heroes. Incredibly strong in the middle lane, provides a lot of early push power. Only drawback is the lack of CC she has. She's got the soft CC in the form of the Silence, but beyond that there's no way for her to lock down targets, and relies purely on her high mobility and high damage to kill people before they can kill her. Lifestealer is the 4th pick ban. Not really too sure what the rationale behind that is. I suppose with the Mirana and the Nyx Assassin, they could maybe throw the Nyx Assassin into the middle lane, have Mirana in the off lane, and then have the Knights as their safe lane farmer. But with the Doom and the Venomancer pick up, looks like Doom will most likely be the safe lane farmer, with perhaps the Mirana in the off lane and the Nyx Assassin serving in the support capacity. Venomancer is another very strong hero, works predominantly in tri-lanes, however we do very rarely see him in the mid lane. I think Trixie likes to run him in the off lane. That's a bit of a holdover from the Hon days, back when he used to play a lot of Venomancer in Heroes and Newer. But as far as Dota 2 goes, Venomancer is used predominantly in that tri-lane, especially for that Poison Gale, very strong long range snare at level 1. Shadow Demon picked up, another excellent hero. In between Shadow Demon and the Nyx Assassin, they have a very strong, well-rounded tri-lane with the defensive power that Shadow Demon provides with that Disrupt, as well as the offensive capability. If he is able to get that Disrupt off, Mirana can land a very easy arrow, follow up with the Impale, and whoever's caught in that's pretty much dead. They've gone for the 4th pick ban on the Puck. This makes a lot of sense, considering the fact that they do have the Clockwork. I've just gotten the message from Jamie, and he says that Tommie wants to play meepo, so we might have a 4th or 5th pick meepo. Let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Meepo has been consistently buffed over the last few patches, especially with the latest change being that he gets his Divided Withstand at level 3. This means, especially with a hero like the Venomancer, that gives Meepo extremely strong kill potential at level 3 with that 2 points up in poof, and with a secondary clone. Venomancer opens up with a Gale, Meepo runs in, double poof, and that's about 300 magic damage off the bat. Very high amount of damage, very hard to stop. One of the drawbacks of Meepo though is each of his clones does sap EXP, and so with 5 clones, for instance, with 5 clones in a team fight, 80% of the EXP will go towards the Meepos, as they each count as a separate hero in terms of EXP gain, so that can starve the rest of the team from EXP. But with good global presence and good micro skills, you can always ensure that you have a Meepo in each lane as well as the jungle. Quickly hit level 17, get all 4 of your Meepos up, farm up the Aghanim Scepter, and rely on the HP from the Aghanim Scepter, as well as that 5th Meepo to just deathball your way through. We've got a Sand King pickup. Really good duo with the Venomancer and the Sand King. They both alleviate each other's weaknesses. Venomancer has a very strong long-range snare, but he lacks any form of hard CC. Sand King provides that with the Burrow Strike. As well as that, Sand King's one of his early disadvantages is the fact that in the early stages of the game, with low points up in the Burrow Strike, he has a very low range, goes up from 300 up to 700, and so the Venomancer Gale provides a nice way for him to close the distance in the early levels until he can get that level 4 Burrow Strike. Also makes for a very potent roaming combination. We've got a 5th ban Invoker. Invoker, especially with the Quas Wex buff and the latest patch, has become an extremely powerful hero. We haven't seen all too much of Quas Exort Invoker, that seems to have died out. But the Quas Wex Invoker provides an extremely high amount of teamfight potential, especially in combination with the Clockwork. Clockwork can hook on in, follow up with the Tornado EMP, and then the Meatball, the Deafening Blast, easily wins fights. So it looks like the Radiant side are looking to ban out high-impact teamfight abilities. So we've got the Puck, who could hold them in place of the Dream Coil, the Invoker, the Ember Sprint with high mobility, the Rubik with the positioning play from that Telekinesis, as well as the Spell Steal, although that's usually secondary, as it doesn't really come online until he's level 6. Looks like the Dire side has banned off the Silencer. Very strong ban, particularly as Silencer's ult can completely screw up the Sand King initiation with the Epicenter into Burrow Strike, as well as shut down Slark's escape and offensive abilities. As without Pounce, Slark is unable to maintain time on target, as he is a melee hero. And looks like we're finally going to the 5th pick. The Radiant side will most likely be looking for a mid hero now. They can always throw either the Nyx Assassin or the Marana into the middle lane, but from the look of it, we're looking at a Nyx, Doom, Shadow Demon tri-lane with the Marana in the off lane or perhaps middle. And so depending on the last pick can determine the fate of their lanes. And we have the Visage, so it looks like we will most likely be seeing a Marana middle, a Nyx in the off lane, and a tri-lane with the Doom, Shadow Demon, and Visage. And it looks like we do have a Meepo, so we will be seeing a Meepo, Venomancer, Sand King tri-lane. It looks like a Slark mid with King Killer, Oh My Glob with Gats over on the Clockwork, so an off-lane Clock, and the tri-lane with Venomancer, Sand King, and Meepo. This should be a very fun game to watch, folks. Radiant side still taking a bit longer to choose their heroes. They do have an extremely powerful tri-lane with that Visage. Visage is the strongest tri-lane hero in the game, just because of the fact that he has not only Soul Assumption, which is essentially a level 1 Dagon at an extremely high range, but also the fact that he has Grave Shield to catch people out of position. If Visage is not focused in any try-on-try engagement, he will be able to pick up a kill. Just going to quickly change the camera settings, bear with me just 1 second. And so Nyx Assassin picks up the Stout Shield. Looks like he's going to the off lane, so we will have a Marana middle and a Doom tri-lane. Over on the Radiant side, we've got Kin Killer moving in with the Stout Shield, pretty standard build for him. One of the drawbacks of Slark is he does have very low armor, so it's almost imperative that he always starts with the Stout Shield. He's unable to sustain harass for too long against a ranged hero otherwise. Venomancer's picking up Observer Ward, Sentries, and the Smoke of Deceit. Looks like he's not going to take any chances. Gives a Sentry Ward over to Oh My Glob, so he could use that to block off the camp or perhaps the D-Ward of the enemy. And over on the Meepo, this is the hero of the hour. He has picked up an early Stout Shield. Not too bad for the Meepo. Ideally, you would want to have start with a Ring of Protection, as Meepo does have very high armor, and that early Basilius Ring can help out the rest of his tri-lane. Looks like we might actually have a level 1 gank over in the middle lane. We see both the Sand King and the Venomancer slowly making their way on over. Looks like they're changing their mind. No, they're a little bit indecisive, moving back and forth. Would be interesting to have a level 1 gank, especially with that Pounce from Slark. should he choose to level it. Over on the dire side, we might actually have dual lanes. No, never mind. The Shadow Demon's hanging around in the middle lane for now. Shadow Demon Mirana is a very potent dual lane, as you have the disruption into the era. But it looks like he's simply safeguarding it. We've got a double damage spawning on the top lane, sorry. Shadow Demon's gonna poke his head on out. He's spotted. Drops a ward, gets hit by the Burrow Strike and the Gale. This could be a this could be a first blood, sorry. Arrow is thrown, misses completely. Venomancer does a bit more harassment. Mirana actually body blocks his Shadow Demon, and that looks like a level 1 kill. Not too sure if that second Burrow Strike was necessary, but it does secure the first blood for the Radiant side. Horsemen and the Ruckus are up to a great start. Venomancer picks up the double damage. This Mirana is not going to be having a good time. Slark already has picked up 2 creeps worth of EXP, so he is almost level 2, while Mirana is only about level 1. She's gotten half the experience for that 1 creep. Over on the bottom lane, with meepo being left alone by the Nyx Assassin. Nyx Assassin's playing very aggressive now. He knows that the tri-lane isn't there to support the meepo, so he's going to make the most of what he can. Does a bit of damage. One of the things about Nyx Assassin that makes him a great offlaner, especially in a one-on-one situation, is the fact that he does have 2 more base regen, HP regen per second than most heroes, similar to an unbuffed axe. We've got Poof at level 1 from the meepo. Not too sure what the rationale for that is. Earthbind generally is a superior pickup at level 1, as it means that, especially with that tri-lane, you've got another form of lockdown. Blind Gale misses completely. He was thinking that Nyx Assassin might burrow in through the trees. Burrow Strike over from Sanking. We've got that Earthbind at level 2. Poof does a bit of damage. Spike Carapace prevents the Venomancer from getting a head off. 2-man Impale, and it looks like he's going to mosey on out of there. Bit of a pity that Venomancer wasn't level 2, otherwise he would have had that Poison Sting, could have done a little bit more damage, but other than that, things should seem pretty standard. Over on the top lane, things are going pretty well. Ooh, got a little bit of lag going on. Doombringer's off, going to get a lot of farm. We'll see what he chooses to do with this. Usually when Doom is thrown into a tri-lane situation, he usually wants to pick up something like a mech for the team, as he can get a 7-8 minute mech. Means that you can group up a lot earlier, take a lot of fights, use that team fight power from that to take towers, and it does look like a 2-2-1. Shadow Demon's come over to babysit the Mirana. Mirana taking a lot of harassment damage from the Slark. Looks like Kin Killer's maximizing the usage of Pounce as well as that Dark Pack to do a bit of harassment over in the Mirana. Shadow Demon comes in from the side, throws out a single auto attack, decides that Mirana wasn't really in position for the disruption into Era. One of the advantages of having Slark is, should he get disrupted, unless the arrow lands perfectly, he can immediately pounce on out. So it requires expert timing between the Shadow Demon and the Mirana player to be able to land that arrow. Not only that, he can always activate the Dark Pack prior to that, debuff to slow, and then jump on out of there. Slark has his bottle flying into him from the courier. Looks like we have a haste rune on the bottom lane. Looks like he might want to take advantage of that. Nyx is hanging around. He's got a poor man's shield now, so the vast majority of damage coming out from the support players will be mitigated. Finds the Venomancer. They're both trading hits. Venomancer realizes that with that poor man's shield and the extra base health regen, there isn't all too much he can do. Clips the Nyx with that Gale. Earthbind misses. He still has another Earthbind from the second meepo. Double Poof. This is that combination we were talking about earlier. Gets a great 3-man Impale. Well, I guess 4-man with that meepo clone. Throws out the second Earthbind. This looks like the Nyx Assassin is going down. No, never mind. There was a lack of follow-up from the Sanking. He didn't have enough mana for that secondary Burrow Strike. Looks like the Radiant side are off to a great start here with that early kill. In terms of EXP, they have 750 more over on the Radiant side. Over 1,000 gold. That's mostly coming from efficiency as well as that 1 kill. Clockwork throws out the cogs as well as the battery assault. Harasses back the Visage. Does a lot of damage. Visage with that nerf to his base magic resistance only has 10% instead of the usual 25%. Means that battery assault does an extremely high amount of damage, especially when called out on his own. Slark over in the middle lane gets called out by the disruption. Looks like he's hit by Soul Catcher as well. No arrows thrown out by the Mirana. Did not think she had enough mana for that. No, she didn't. And looks like Slark's going to get out of there for free. He's got that haste rune. He still has the Soul Catcher debuff on him. Pounces, misses to pounce, but is able to clip the Shadow Demon with 1 auto attack as well as a little bit of that Dark Pack damage. He's doing alright so far. Looks like Mirana started out that Blade of Attack to mitigate her low base damage. Slark will want to pick up fast boots and then start ganking once he hits level 6. He is choosing to max out Pounce. It's a very conventional Slark build. Over on the top lane, Visage gets an excellent double pull off onto a stacked hard cap. That creep wave is not going anywhere. He has a Smoke of Deceit and 2 sentries, so it looks like he's looking to counter ward any ward attempts that the Clockwork makes. Clockwork is choosing to max out the Battery Assault, very standard build from him. We'll see what he aims to go for as first item. He may be the mech builder for the team, or it could even be the meepo. Mech is an extremely powerful item on the meepo, as you're playing 3 or 4 heroes, and if any one of them die, you die. So having a mech is beneficial for you. The EHP advantage that comes from it is superior to the Vanguard, and since those stats don't carry over, it does serve as a nice HP buffer. He's got 2 points up in Poof and 1 point up in that Earthbind. Pretty standard build. I know a lot of meepo players usually like to get a secondary point up in that Earthbind just to increase the cast range to 750. With the change in the cast point, as well as the animation speed, it's a lot easier to land. Shadow Demon gets caught up by the pounce, but lands a Disruption Soul Catcher. Lack of communication there, misses the arrow into the Disruption. Kingkiller decides that he can't fight this. Venomancer is coming around, gets the Gale off, and he goes down to the Starstorm. Venomancer is now caught out of position. Disruption will be coming off cooldown in a bit. He doesn't have enough range for that Soul Catcher, and looks like Venomancer will be fine. Miranda does not have enough mana to throw out the arrow, but with that bottle, looks like Shadow Demon will get that secondary Disruption off, and it looks like Venomancer is going to go down as well. That's 2 for nothing. Bit of a misplay there on the Radiant side. Kingkiller really underestimated the amount of damage that the Soul Catcher adds to the Shadow Demon. Looks like Shadow Demon is choosing to forgo Shadow Poison, choosing to max out the Disruption and the Soul Catcher. Not too sure how I feel about this. Shadow Poison has been buffed significantly in the latest patch to now stack up to 5 times. This is a drastic increase in the amount of damage, and meanwhile in the middle lane, Kingkiller gets an excellent pounce into a Gale, and Mirana goes down. Kill for a kill. Excellent cog in there from Gats. Does not follow up with the cogs. I didn't think he had enough mana to drop that immediately. No, he chose not to drop the cogs. Not too sure what happened there. Maybe a bit of miscommunication, but there goes his level 1 ult. It's on cooldown for about 55 more seconds, so until then, Doom is safe. He does have Doom up. Doom's gone for the greedy build of the Midas. We'll see if the Radiant side decide to punish this. As one of the big drawbacks about Doom is, while he has a lot of HP, he's very slow and he has no armor, so he actually takes a lot of damage very quickly, especially from creeps. And without the phase boots, without the Scorched Earth up, he's very easy to kill. However, the advantage to this is if his team is able to create enough space, or if the Radiant side fails to punish the Midas, he can get an extreme amount of farm and snowball that into a lead. So far in the last hits, Tommie is leading the way with 42 for 3, especially with the 2 meepos. He's picking up a high amount of experience. Looks like the Dire side is rotating in both their supports over into the bottom lane to get a pick off. Sand King is caught a bit out of position. He's at very low HP. If he gets called out, a single Disruption Soul Catcher into a Soul Assumption can mean his death. Playing a little bit defensively. We see Meepo hanging around. He's got 1 back at base, 1 over in the tower. This means that he can choose to constantly cycle 1 back and forth. Kingkiller catches out the Visage. High amount of damage that comes out there from the pounce. He does have his Shadow down, so he should be fine. Gale clips him, ensures the kill on the Visage. Shadow Demon throws out the Disruption over into Sand King. The Mirana ult flies out. First Earthbind misses, and looks like he's going to make it on Elder. Mirana's ult is a fantastic ability, especially just for the fact that if your teammates happen to get called out of position, unless the enemy team has Dust or Sentries, it's essentially get a jail free card. Also can serve as a global smoke if you do need to move into position. Forces the supports on the Radiant side to constantly have Sentries and Dust up. Nyx Assassin gets called out of position, and he goes down. Well, he is revealed while under that Earthbind and is quickly bursted down. Bit of a misplay there, not too sure what he was thinking. He knew that the buff from Mirana's ult was wearing off, chose not to Vendetta in time, and paid the price. That's very costly death for the Nyx Assassin, as his first Vendetta is effectively being wasted until it's back off cooldown. Greatly impacts his powers as a ganking hero. Granted, it does have an extremely low cooldown. It'll be off in about 40 seconds. Kingkiller snags a double damage rune. He's been having a lot of luck with those runes there. Mirana hasn't had much of a chance to go for them, and it looks like he's going to move on top to punish that Doombringer for that greedy pickup.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
Point blank hook into the cogs, and looks like Doom is completely screwed. There's no way he can get out now there. Slark actually pounces over the cogs, snags a few last hits, and kills him. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, looks like the Visage does pick up the Venomancer. That Soul Assumption damage is extremely potent, especially on the low HP support heroes of the Radiant side. However, the advantage of having that Sand King is he is able to disjoin it with the Sandstorm if his fingers are fast enough. Dumble D doing a bit of farming there. Nice micro skills, maximizing his farm. We do have that offensive ward placed behind the tower, so it looks like the Dire side are looking to do a few dives over onto to kill the meepo and to make sure they can control him. However, with right now the Dire side is predominantly magic damage based. Oh, we've got double damage Kingkiller moving in. He's got the Shadow Dance, so he knows that he's completely fine. Nice Fire Strike in, only catches 1. but is able to clip the Visage. Looks like Visage might be able to make it out. Oh, Soul Catcher, and if that arrow lands, he'll go down, but Miranda unfortunately is out of mana. Slug does not have enough mana to use his Shadow Dance, and looks like Miranda overextended and is going to get picked off. Good play there by the Sand King, recognizing that she was out of position, did not have enough mana for leap. Turns around and Burrow Strikes, and with the follow-up from the Venomancer, leads to a quick kill. Over in the Venomancer, he does have 2 up in Gale, 1 in Poison Sting, and 2 in Ward. Very surprised with the second point up in Gale. Ideally, you just want the 1 point in Gale, as the primary benefit from the Venomancer Gale is just the snare. Dumbledy caught out of position, unable to poof out in time, and it looks like he's going down. He actually cancelled that secondary poof. I'm not too sure what happened there. He would have actually made it home free, but bit of misclick, maybe a misplay, and pays for it with his life. Doom has now picked up a face boot, so he does have a lot of mobility. Not unsure what his next item pickup is. He looks like he's going for that carry to build, so he might even opt for something extremely greedy like the Radiance. He might opt for, say, a Shiva's Guard if he wants to fight a bit earlier. Would like to see the mech, but it looks like the support players are most likely going to be picking that up. Visage is another great carrier for the mech, as he's extremely hard to kill, and the longer he is alive in fights, the more soul assumptions he could drop off, the more damage he could do with that Grave Shield. And with his familiars up, Visage is now an extremely potent hero. We see him getting a lot of space there to farm on his own. Give him a bit of EXP, give him a bit of farm. Venomancer's almost hit that level 6, looks like he will be opting for the mech this game. Does not have boots yet, which could be detrimental. One of the big advantages about Venomancer is the fact that even though he's a support hero, and even though if he isn't given a lot of farm, through his wards he can pick up farm. Much like that Dazzle, he scales very well into the late game on virtue of his wards. Clockwork caught out of position, soul captured, and looks like he's going to go down. Throws out the cogs. Nyx Assassin does not have enough mana, but uses that carapace, runs blindly into the cogs. Great play there by him. Looks like the Familiar is going to pick him up. Bit unfortunate, there was a great play there by the Clockwork, using the cogs to escape on the choke point. Visage Familiars can't find him. Oh no, it looks like they found him, and Miranda gets the kill. Traps are in the cogs, so from Hell's, with his last breath, he stabs at V with the cogs. Venomancer moving in, Miranda had to waste the leap. Will be coming off in cooldown in a few seconds. Still has the ult, so it looks like she'll be going home free. Unless if King Killer is able to land a pounce. He picks up the haste rune, and looks like Miranda's going to be forced to blow that ult. Let's see if the Radiant side have any Dust or Sentries. Earthbind thrown out, and she goes down. Great play there by the Radiant side. Feeds a Visage Familiar. Excellent presence of mind by the meepo player. Looks like he's going to be rushing that Aghanim Scepter. A little bit surprised that he chose to go for the Ogre Club and the Staff of Wizardry. Usually the point booster is the most efficient way to start the Aghanim Scepter, as it provides both HP and mana. Visage continuing to farm in the bottom lane. He does have 873 gold now. Might look to pick up that Buckler, as outside of that Gravekeeper's Cloak, Visage has very low mana. King Killer choosing to dive, gets another excellent kill. Very aggressive plays from King Killer. It's one of his primary traits as a player. Likes to dive, likes to play very aggressive, plays fast and loose, and plays heroes with high mobility so he can take advantage of the facts. With that down, you see Dumbledy over in the middle lane as well as in the jungle. Might group for a push. They do have to punish that Doom, and the only way, one of the best ways to do that is to take towers, deprive them of map control, use that Slark Shadow Dance to figure out where their wards are, deprive them of that, and then slowly starve the Doom of farm. Arrow thrown out, hits the creep, so it's not completely worthless. Nyx Assassin goes in, hesitates for a second, misses the Impale. That's one of the changes to the Nyx Assassin that has enough this effectiveness, is Impale is no longer auto-targeting, but you have to cast it manually. Means it is a lot harder to land, especially on a slippery hero like Slark. Turns around, great Burrow Strike, Epicenter combination is cancelled by point blank arrows. Sand King goes down, bit unfortunate, was a slight second off. King Killer goes down as well, Doom before he can let off that Shadow Dart. And it looks like a 3 for 1. Gatzos comes in, catches the Miranda, looks like he will get one kill, and he can escape. The Venomancer ult means that the other two heroes of Dire side, too low to chase. Doom without his Doom, and with Scorched Earth wearing off, there isn't an awful lot he can do apart from walking up and hitting people. And just with the face boots, he won't be fast enough to be able to do all too much damage. Good turnaround there by the Dire side. Excellent awareness and presence of mind of the Miranda to throw out that point blank arrow to cancel the Sand King Epicenter.
Yeah, you have to change your priority, bro.
And it looks like we have 4 players on the Radiant on the Dire. Sorry, 3 players on the Dire side. Looks like the Doom's backing off into the jungle. Chooses to eat the Hellbear, not the Smasher. The other one, I can never remember the name for that one. One of the big things, important things to remember about Doom is what creep you eat determines what you can do. And so in the early stages of the game, he's currently eating the Satire No, not the Trickster, the Satire. Never remember the names for this one. The Satire Shockwave creep, so it gives them the life regeneration aura as well as the Shockwave. The Shockwave isn't too effective as Doom has a very low mana pool, but the HP regen is extremely helpful as it's essentially a free ring of regen. Looks like the Dire side are grouping up on the top lane for a push. We've got Mirana and the Doom going in for a kill there. Missed that kill, first kill of most of the game so far, bit unfortunate. Sand King goes in for the Burrow Strike, but has to be careful. Visage is hanging around with the Soul Assumption and Grave Shield combination. Good cogs to push back the Visage, drain a bit of mana and HP, throws out that Soul Assumption, but with only one charge, it only does about 20 damage, so it just barely scratches him. Bannermancer hanging around, spinning out more wards. Looks like he is aiming to max out those wards. Bit unsure now about that second point in the Venomous Gale. Would be better if he could max out the wards at level 7, or perhaps get another point off in the Poison Sting. Looks like the Dire side do get the top lane tower for free. Very unfortunate. You always want to make sure there's a trade. Looks like there is a defensive Doom thrown out onto Slark. Doom is turning around with the phase speed, as well as the Scorched Earth. He is moving very quickly. Looks like King Killer's going to go down. Bit of an overkill coming in there. Didn't assume. I guess he assumed that the Doom wouldn't throw out the Doom. Maybe he thought it was on cooldown, or that he wouldn't risk wasting it. But fortunately didn't work out too well for him. Sand King in the meanwhile gets an excellent kill over on the Nyx Assassin. Looks like he just used the Burrow Strike for that one. He's picked up an Urn as well as a Arcane Boot, so he's now free to go in for the Blink Dagger. Demonic Purge thrown out onto the Venomancer. Sand King goes in for the Burrow Strike, uses the Sandstorm, recognizing that it will do a lot more damage than him simply hitting him. Earthbind thrown out by Tommie. Excellent play there from the high ground. Gets a free kill. There's a Familiar standing around. Looks like he's completely forgotten to micro. He was too busy killing that Clockwork. Dove a little bit too far with that Haste Rune. Feeds 200 gold. This is one of the huge drawbacks of the Visage. You never want to feed your Familiars unless you absolutely have to. That's 200 gold you're giving to the enemy team, and not only that, it's a very long cooldown. Looks like King Killer's going in looking for blood. With the Sand King there as well, it doesn't work out too great for him. Nyx is caught out of position. He realizes he's been seen, gets Gale, doesn't pop the Carapace, pops the Impale, gets the meepo illusions, but gets hit by the Pounce and goes down. Arrow flies out, nicks one of the meepos, but with 3 more hanging around, not an awful lot you can do with that. Dumble D leading the scoreboard in terms of CS with 101 CS. Excellent amount of fun. He has picked up that Aghanim Scepter now, so this is the point where meepo is starting to become a bit ridiculous. The Dire side is lacking severely in a high amount of magical AoE damage. They do have high single target damage with the Doom, with the Demonic Purge and the Soul Catcher with the Arrow. But beyond the Starfall and the Impale, they don't have an awful lot of AoE. Means that meepo is an extremely good pickup, as he's gotten enough farm to pick up the Aghanim Scepter. Each of his clones now have a lot of HP. With that 35% magic resistance, if he looks to pick up something like a Heart, he could simply just turn around and start beating them to death. They don't do enough physical DPS to kill the meepos yet, and so this could the early greedy Midas pickup on the Doom could turn around to bite him in the ass. His items have not progressed in a long time. We'll see if he has anything waiting for him to career. That looks like he is going for that Radiance. Very greedy build in the Doom. You'd have hoped that with the Midas and with the Devourer, he would have had the Radiance up by now. Looks like we're looking at a 22 minute Radiance. We have the Mirana ult thrown out. Nyx is moving into position. He wants to get a 2-man Impale. Gets it off over on the Venomancer as well as King Killer. Good turnaround. Throws out the Doom on the Clockwork as well as the Demonic Purge. Clockwork is now rendered ineffective, but with Shadow Dance is thrown out by King Killer. Shadow Dance is wearing off. He's forced to withdraw. Excellent Burrow Strike by Sand King. Uses the Sandstorm, knowing that he will do more damage to the team with Sandstorm as opposed to be standing hitting them. Also means that he won't take any damage. Actually gets 2 kills with the Sandstorm. Very messy fight going on. Sand King turns around, hits the Mirana, will not have enough damage to kill her. But Clockwork is following on up. If he gets one more Rocket Flare off, maybe with the own damage he can tick her down, but it looks like Mirana is able to bottle through that. Burrow Strike thrown out once again, only for creeps this time. Excellent play from the Sand King. He's recognized the strengths of his hero. He knows when to burrow in. He knows when to use the Sandstorm to maximize damage. And he's only had 1 ult so far that didn't end too well, but other than that, he's got a lot of presence. He's 7-2-7, doing extremely well for a 5-position player. meepo is pushing the bottom lane with 3 of his images. He can always bring the 4th into position. Looks like the 4th one is off farming in the jungle. Each of his illusions currently have 1.5k HP, and with 4 points up and Geostrike, they're doing a lot of damage. It's essentially a free Asgardi on each of them.
Dire's bottom tower
Impale
is
thrown out by the
attacked.
Nyx, only clips one of them, doesn't do all too much damage. Nyx's effectiveness has been highly questionable this game. His first Vendetta was wasted, which is extremely detrimental as he was unable to get a pick up on the support heroes. He's only got the Arcane Boots and the Poor Man's Shield. His items really haven't progressed too far. Over on the EXP side, we've got over 5,000 lead for the Radiant side, and it looks like over 5,000 in terms of gold. We've got an Invisible Clockwork looking to gets a 2-man Cogsor on the Nyx Assassin as well as the Visage. This is excellent. He's unfortunately picked off by the Soul Catcher into the arrow. Unfortunately, Sand King didn't have enough mana for an ult. That would have been a perfect epicenter. He is picked off by the Slark. Earthbinds are thrown out by the meepo. This is one of the underrated aspects of the meepo. The fact that there are 4 heroes that can throw out a 1,000 range snare, which will mobilize you for 2 seconds, is extremely powerful, especially if you're able to land all of them. Runner throws out the Moonlight Shadow, and using that she's able to escape. Meepo perhaps realizes that one of them is around. Runner turns around, gets an arrow, lands the Starstorm, and gets an excellent kill. Meepo unfortunately unable to poop on out of there. Sand King doesn't have enough mana for that Burrow Strike, throws out the Urn as a final fuck you and decides to back off. Radiant are grouping up in the middle lane, however, King Killer has picked up that Shadow Blade. Excellent pickup on the Slark, as especially with that Shadow Dance, it now gives them a way to initiate into fights and a way to escape fights. Or if one happens to be on cooldown, he can use the other one to mitigate one of his disadvantages. He has picked it up very early. The issue with Shadow Blade, particularly in public games, is that people tend to get the item way too late. If you do get the item before the 20-minute mark, you could easily maximize its usage, get a few pickups, make sure the supports stay down and prevent them from getting that gold to buy sentries, to buy that dust, to buy that gold. If they're forced to buy it, then that delays their core items such as the mech or the 4-star. As right now, looks like the Visage has opted for the Medallion of Courage. Excellent pickup in the Visage, especially with the Grave Chill and the Familiars, but it has delayed his mechanism. He will be finishing it very soon, so a 22-minute mech, not that great, especially with the amount of team fight and 3-on-4 group actions have been happening. Venomancer has picked up the mechanism. Looks like he's going for the Veil of Discord. Excellent item on the Venomancer. Bit surprised he hasn't gone for the Arcane Boots, as Venomancer has a very low mana pool, especially with his ult and with his Gale. And what the Arcane Boots essentially means is he can throw out all of his spells without having to choose between, say, his ult or his mechanism. Clockwork goes in for a very aggressive gank. Hooks in as picked off by the Soul Assumption. King Killer forced to use the Shadow Blade. He's got the Shadow Dance as well, so if he looks to turn around, he can perhaps get a sneaky kill in. He's regenerating up HP, he's got that double damage out. He might look to avenge his comrades, realizes too many of them, decides just to back on out. Save that Shadow Dance for a team fight, and snags the regeneration rune. Clockwork has been initiating very well into fights, but unfortunately that does make him a prime target for all the spells. And the Dire side have an excellent amount of single target damage with that Soul Catcher, with that arrow, with that Soul Assumption. He can zip on in, grab a field of position, but dies very quickly once he does so. Looks like the Radiant team are going in for a backstab onto the Dire side. Slark already gets vision. He wisely chooses to focus on the Visage, uses that Shadow Dance to turn around and fight. Excellent kill there. Epicenter thrown out by the Sand King. Gets 2 kills. Extremely well played there by the Sand King. Runner pops that ult and once again wisely decides to retreat. There isn't all too much she could do. In terms of items, she's farming quite well. She has the Phase Boots, the Drums, and the Yasha. We'll see what she opts to go for now. Ideally, she might want something like a BKB to mitigate all the magic damage coming out of the Radiant side. Or if she wants a bit more damage, particularly to deal with the meepo, she might opt to go for a Maelstrom. Maelstrom is an extremely cost-effective item on the runner, as she's a very slippery target to hit. She doesn't hit very hard, but she has very long range. And so one of the advantages of the Maelstrom is she can hit any target, and the lightning procs from that will damage the rest of the team. Increases the amount of AoE damage she's able to output, especially with that Starstorm. Over on the bottom lane, we see the Doombringer pushing on out, decides wisely to withdraw once the Sand King moves in. Sand King has his Blink Dagger and 3.4k. This is the richest Sand King I've ever seen in a very long time. Unsure what item he'll be looking to go for from now. With that Veil of Discord picked up, he might even opt for the Aghanim Scepter. Usually not that effective as a damage item on the Sand King. Veil of Discord is much cheaper and much more efficient, but with the amount of gold that he's getting, it will be an okay pickup. He can also opt for that BKB, help him survive a bit more of the fights. Gets a good pounce in onto the Shadow Dance. The Shadow Demon, forced to use the Shadow Dance, wisely escapes death. Doom thrown out on one of the meepos, however there are 5 of them. The others don't give a damn. Meepo does go down, but tanks a lot of damage. Mirana has caught that position. forces to use that leap, kills Slark right before she goes down, so a good trade. And that Soul Assumption is making work, ladies and gentlemen. That's 3 kills that the Dire side got purely as a result of that Soul Assumption. The sheer amount of magic damage coming out of that is completely decimating the Radiant side. We might even see if the Sand King maybe opts for something like a Pipe of Insight, perhaps to help mitigate that damage. Looks like he's picked up the Mystic Scepter. He can either be opting for a Shiva's Guard, which would be an excellent way to increase his magic damage further, or perhaps a Sheep Stick, which would be the ideal item. Give him another form of lockdown. Hook in from the Clockwork, picks up the Familiars, unfortunately. This is one of the huge advantages of the Familiars. They can block the hook, they can block the error. They can block those long-range spells that enable you to initiate from far distance without very minimal risk to themselves. Sand King misses the Burrow Strike, however with the blink, panics out. And the Sandstorm, he's able to mosey on out of that. Sandstorm is extremely slippery once he has points up in that Sandstorm, as well as that Blink and Burrow Strike. Gives him 3 escape mechanisms. Flare thrown out, is in range for that Demonic Purge. He does have that Burrow Strike to get out of there. Clockwork now has that Blade Mail. He goes in a little bit too far. He's cut off from support there. Sand King's hanging around the background, but there's not all too much he can do, and it looks like the Clockwork sacrifices his life. Bit of an unfortunate play there. His ult was off cooldown, so he couldn't hook out to his teammate. Looks like he's going for that Aghanim Scepter. Slark has picked up a Dagon. I'm not too sure about this item pickup. Might even be a bit of a troll build. In theory, it does make a bit of sense. If he does get a pick-off pounce onto the Visage, he can quickly burst him down, hit him out of the Shadow Blade, pounce, and then throw out the Dagon. But in terms of damage potential, not the best item he could go for. I would like to see a BKB. Would enable him to man-fight a lot more, especially... Ooh, Blink Epicenter into Burrow Strike combination. Perfect combination. Gets 3. Gale hits 2. Looks like it's a terrible fight for the Dire side. 3 have gone down. Nyx is on the run. He was forced to pop that Vendetta. Doom backs on out. Misses the Burrow Strike again, underestimating the range, or perhaps he might have misclicked the Blink and aimed a bit too far, lowering the Blink range. At any rate, that's the 3 for none. Great turnaround by the Sand King, choosing wisely the Epicenter into the Blink Burrow Strike. And I don't think they could go high ground, but using that slug, they should wisely use the Shadow Dance to de-ward the enemy jungle. There's a lot of wards on the Dire jungle. They want to hold on to that. Looks like they're going to try to break high ground. With 3 of them down for the next 15 seconds, they can do an awful lot of damage, especially with that meepo. Hook in from the Clockwork, pops his Blade Mail, knowing that he's going to be the first target. There's a lot of damage. Doom is thrown out on the meepo, but with that Aghanim Scepter, as well as with the high amount of HP he has, looks like he should be fine. Sand King Burrow strikes out. Venomancer's ult wasted, not too sure what he was trying to do there. He hits the Visage Familiars, but other than that, doesn't really do anything. Miranda dives in, kills the meepo, but sacrifices her own life. She's been doing that a lot recently, forced to use her leap offensively, pays for it with her life, especially with that Slark able to pin her into place. And once again, it's a 3 for 1. Looks like they really can break high ground now, especially with the Venomancer wards being thrown on out. We've got the Visage and the Shadow Demon. Neither of them have enough damage potential or control on their own to be able to prevent this push. Low mana on all 4 heroes that are still up though, so it looks like the Sand King won't be able to do that Blink Burrow Strike initiation. Summons new familiars, throws out the Grave Shield, harasses with that Medallion Courage, Blink Burrow Strike onto the Visage with that Slark Pounce. Hasn't used the Dagon yet, bit surprised about that. And it looks like that's a mid lane Rax for the Radiant side. Kin Killer's forced to withdraw. Dire side wisely drop a Sentry Ward. Hook comes out from the Clockwork. Looks like a Shiva's Guard pickup. Good 2-man Impale. Clockwork's called out. Looks like once again he'll be the Sacrificial Lamb. Kin Killer turns around, pops the Shadow Dance, heals up through that. Is seen by the Sentry Ward, so he is in a lot of danger. Sand King goes down, feeding his 1,000 gold, feeding his spree. Bit of a misplay. Looks like the Radiant side overcommitted. They really should have withdrawn when they had the chance. And looks like they started to throw their lead a little bit. Were unable to take the Rax. Not too sure what Venomancer is doing there. Wasn't able to run out. Maybe she copped an arrow to the face. Feeding a lot of gold over to the Dire side. We see a significant drip now. There's a 12,000 gold lead over on the Radiant side. There's about 10,000 EXP lead in terms of items. They are significantly ahead. But when ahead, you get further ahead. Looking over into the meepo, he's picked up the Vladmir's Offering. Excellent pickup on the meepo as well as for the rest of his team, as it still gives the 5+ armor to his entire team. It's a lot of EHP. Even though the Dire side don't have an awful lot of physical DPS, it's a nice way for them to mitigate damage. Also means that during pushes, the creeps are a lot hard. They'd have to take 2 or 3 more hits from the tower. Means that he's able to push a lot more efficiently. A little bit of micro misplay there, but he's getting back into it. He's picked up a Reaver and as well as a Plate Mail. I'm not too sure what he's trying to do here. It looks like he's trying to go for both the Assault Cuirass and the Harder Tarask at the same time. Harder Tarask burst is superior on the meepo, as the stat share from the Agnum Scepter means that all 5 of them are tankier, whereas the Assault Cuirass only predominantly affects the first one. The others still do get that plus 5 armor, so with the Vladimir's offering, that's plus 10 armor given to all of his team. That effectively increases their EHP by about 1,000 points, especially against physical DPS. Excellent way to ensure that they're able to take a few more hits. Slark choosing not to go for a BKB, instead upgrades his Dagon. I guess he's also in that school of thought of why the hell not. He's got a level 4 Dagon now. If he does get that Shadow Blade pounce into Dark Pack, he can instantly kill that Visage. Can be a crucial factor in the fights, or perhaps even the Shadow Demon. And I guess with the decreased cooldown on the Dagon, with Slark being able to jump in and out of fights, the Dagon actually can be a pretty decent pickup on him. Would have preferred to see perhaps an Ayascadi or a BKB, but what can you do? Looks like Sand King's caught in a position there, underestimated the flying vision of the Visage Familiars and goes down to the drop. Good coordination there, disruption into the error, goes down to the Soul Assumption. Really needed that BKB. Mirana ult is thrown out to prevent the counterattack. Double D throws out a few poops, but is unable to get a kill so far. Focuses down to Mirana, beating him down. Looks like another Dagon pickup on the Clockwork. No, there was a Dagon thrown out. Who has a Dagon? Meepo goes down. Visage almost has the Agnum Scepter. Looks like the Radiant side is starting to throw their advantage a lot. Could have sworn I saw another Dagon attack in there. Maybe a trick of the light. Not too sure what the Radiant are doing. They're starting to throw away their advantage significantly. The EXP gap has now dropped to about 7,000 EXP. Gold difference is only 10,000 now. The Dire side do have a lot of turnaround potential, especially with that Mirana and that Doombringer. Mirana has finished that Mantis Style, so she's finished her first core big damage item. She might be opting perhaps now for something like a Chrysalis or even a Butterfly. Doombringer has finished that Radiance. Looks like he's going to be opting for that Soul Cuirass. He's trying to mitigate his low armor. Visage has finished the Agnum Scepter. This is a huge pickup for the Visage. Having 3 Familiars means you have 3 stuns. You've got 3 birds there dishing out a lot of damage. Really helps out in the pushes. Effectively increases your total ult damage by about 50%. The Nyx Assassin, his items have not really progressed all too well. He has picked up the Blink Dagger and the 4-star, so he's completely finished his core. This allows him to serve almost like an angrier version of Puck. He can blink in, get that Impale, use that Spike Carapace to get people to back the fuck away from him, and then use the 4-star to jump on out. His Mana Burn has a very low cooldown of 4 seconds. He can always turn around. Good hook in from the Clockwork, aiming to protect the Sand King. Somehow screws up the cogs, pushes him out of it, but it looks like the Shadow Demon's caught out of position. And Kin Killer should be able to get a free easy kill there. We've got the Mirana ult thrown out, but sentries are dropped immediately. 2 sentries, a bit overzealous there on the Radiant side. Runs into an error, unfortunately. Good covering fire from the Mirana. Shadow Demon's still on the run. Meepos are trying to track him down. The Mirana ult is just about to wear off. It wears off. And we'll see if Meepo perhaps opts for even something like a Blink Dagger. It's an excellent combination with the Meepo. You queue up Poof on 4 of them, you blink in with the 5th, immediately they take about 1,000 magic damage. And then the 5th Meepo can then do a point blank Earthbind. We'll see how his items progress. Still sitting on the same items from before. He might have something sitting in the stash. It looks like he is going for that Harder Tarask. He's almost got it. Throws out Earthbinds blindly, hoping to snag someone. Doesn't snag anyone. But decides, hey, why not? At least I tried. Right now, the Mirana ult is down. Slark's Shadow Dance should be off cooldown in about 5 more seconds. This is the highest timing push window that the Radiant side have. Sand King hanging around. He has to be aware that Visage does give flying vision from his Familiar, so he can't get caught out like he did last time. If the Visage Familiars hit him, that disables his Blink Dagger for 3 seconds. Can be very detrimental, as we saw in that Roshan fight, especially if he's caught in an unlikely position. King Killer taking a lot of harassment damage from the Mirana. Mirana forced to pop a Mantis Style. Once these illusions die, they'll be on cooldown for a very long time.
Radiant's top tower no longer radiates.
Doom thrown out on the Sand King. Once again, he's caught out of position, underestimating that flying vision coming up from the Visage Familiars. Playing way too aggressively without support from his team, is picked off again. This is being quite detrimental. Visage, an excellent counterpick to the Sand King in the sense that the Visage Familiars can scout out areas where the Sand King can traditionally hide, such as in the trees, away in Fog of War, waiting for the enemy to move on out. Dagon thrown out from the Venomancer. It looks like that's what the second Dagon pickup is, and he's going to trade his life for it. Not too sure if that was worth it. You trade 5 support for another 5 support, 2 for 1. Radiant are starting to get a little bit sloppy. They need to go for a Roshan. They need to get an initiation kill off. They need one more big team fight, and then they can win the game. They need to seal the deal now before the Dire side start to get a bit too much of a lead. Over in terms of last hits, we can see that while the meepo is leading the way at 194 for 3, Doom isn't that far behind with 183 for 12. Run is at 130 for 7. And Slark and Clockwork haven't been farming all too well. They've been mostly focusing on rotating around the map and getting kills. But the lack of farm really could turn around to be a drawback. This is one of the weaknesses I've noticed about Team Horsemen of the Apocalypse. They love to go in for those early ganks, they love to go in for those early fights. They tend to generate a huge early lead, much like a lot of cis Russian teams. But unfortunately, they don't seem to be able to transition that into the mid-late game. They don't seem to pick up enough farm to really justify what they're doing. They seem to waste a lot of time running around, and when they do happen to feed kills, they're feeding a lot more than just kills. They're feeding the experience, and they're losing the momentum they're gaining up from the early game. So we'll see what they choose to do now. Looks like they're grouping on up. Clockwork heading on in. He's got Dust. Hasn't picked up his Aghanim Scepter. Looks like they really want to go for that Roshan attempt, but with the Visage Familiars, they know that they'll always be seen. And you could even see the ward there on the high ground there, and the Roshan pit. Looks like Clockwork's noticed it. They need a range steerer now to head on over and finish it off. Visage Familiars, 2 of them, hanging around the Roshan pit. Sand King blinks on up. Takes out the ward, eats a rock drop to the face, Burrow strikes down, and the Dire side know what's happening. They know that the Radiant team need that Roshan in order to cement their advantage. They need that high ground. Nyx Assassin 4-stops himself out, Slark gets a good pick off, and you see that power of the Dagon. However, without that sentry, they're unable to finish him off. Running away at about 100 HP, very low. Hook into the Gale, eats an arrow to the face. Clockwork goes down to the sheer amount of damage from those familiars. Visage is able to hang around. Epicenter into Burrow Strike, only gets 1. Bit unfortunate, throws out the Doom on the Slark. This is an excellent pickup for the Doom, as it completely disables the effectiveness of his abilities. He can't use his Dark Pact, he can't use his Pounce, and he's unable to use his Dagon. Double D snags another kill, excellent usage, juggling back and forth between those Earthbinds. And he decides, fuck it, let's just take this Rax. We've got what we came here for. Marana hanging out in the background, throws out another arrow. Between those Visage Familiars, Double D taking a lot of damage there from all 3 of them. Juggling the rock drops, gets all 3 of them now. Double D might actually go down there if he's not careful. The rest of his team is there to back him up. Wisely retreats. We see the power of the Visage Familiars. They essentially tore through Clockwork there. He wasn't able to get much done. Looks like he's feeding 2 of them. Doom goes a little bit too far, overcommits, and goes down to the Dagon. Doom immediately buys back, knowing that if he's down for this fight, this could very well be game. Radiant side have finally taken the mid-racks. Looks like they're having a bit of fun with those Dagon pickups. Would prefer to see a few more serious items, but what can you do? Dumbledee's meepo eats another arrow to the face, takes a lot of damage, but is able to get those poop stops. Does a lot of damage to that Doom, completely tears through him. Miranda is disrupted, so the defensive power of that disruption enables it to get a leap out. Venomancer throws out his ultimate, called out by the Monk Purges, looks like he's going to go down. Never mind, Sand King blinks in, Burrow strikes, gets 2, throws out the Shiva's gun to slow him down. Venomancer goes down, but he's more than happy with that trade. Looks like the Visage is completely screwed from the Earthbind damage. Nyx Assassin is called on out and goes down to the sheer power of the meepo. One of the Familiars is turning around. He should turn around and just whack it. He could probably kill it. But never mind. Looks like the Radiant side are looking to push up onto the top lane. This is one of the things I always tell people when I'm playing in games. Once you take one Rax, take the others. If the enemy team is down, go for the throne. Never go for the throne, always go for Megas. Unless you're in a base race situation, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Looks like they're taking those words to heart. Burrow strike onto the range creep that was about to die from the Dark Pact. Shadow Demon throwing out the Shadow Poisons, but there isn't an awful lot he can do there. If he does stack all 5 of them, he can do a significant amount of damage. I think it has increased to about 1,280 magic damage if he's able to stack all 5. As each stack of the Shadow Poison doubles, but he's only got 1 point in it, so there isn't a lot of damage he could do there. With all 5 meepos beating down on the Rax, it goes down extremely quickly. They can go for Megas. Looks like the fortification is thrown out. Hook whiffed there by Gats, a rare miss from him. He's been pretty on point with all of his hooks so far. His awareness hasn't been all too great. He has hooked himself into a lot of bad situations, but his accuracy has been absolutely perfect. Looks like the Nyx Assassin and the Doombringer are about to respawn, so the Radiant side should wisely decide to retreat. They do have most of their ults up. They're lacking the Venomancer ult. Looks like he's bought Boots of Travels. This is a very rich Venomancer, but it'll be up in a few seconds. Miranda ult to initiate. 3-man Impale. Doom out on the slot and immediately drops him out of the fight. Poop's thrown up with a meepo. He can face tank everything. He has Heart, he has Assault Cuirass, he has Aghanim Scepter. He doesn't give a shit. Miranda forced off by the Poison Sting and as well as the ultimate damage coupled with the Poison Sting. He actually goes down to the Poison Sting damage. That Veil of Discord really doing work there. Meepo running in, gets Earthbinds in, goes down to the Nyx Assassin. That is the most bizarre mana burn I've ever seen in my life. Throws out, hits one of them, kills all 4.
Dire's middle tower has fallen.
Dire have lost both their tier 4s. They do have the bottom laner Rack still alive, so that is an upside.
Dire's bottom tower.
Venomancer choosing to upgrade his Dagon. Once again, we can see how the Radiant side is trying to be a bit cheeky, have some fun with the game. Sand King has picked up his Aghanim Scepter. Surprised he hasn't gone for a Dagon as well. Jamie usually wants the first player to go for inefficient item choices such as the Dagon. Clockwork hanging around. He still has not had a chance to finish his Aghanim Scepter. Clockwork has done an excellent job initiating and splitting up fights, but the one drawback to this is with those Visage Familiars, he always winds up going down in every fight, just to the sheer amount of single target damage. As you can see right now, Visage Familiars coupled with that one Impale is enough to bring him down, especially with that Demonic Purge and Soul Catcher. It's an extremely high amount of damage. But Clockwork has done his job, which is to initiate the fight and to split up the fight. He's isolated his targets effectively. He's ensured that he's always available to hook on in, and should need be, he's served Sacrificial Lamb. Doombringer attempting to defend the throne. Looks like the throne might even go down to the sheer amount of creep aggro. No, it turns out all the aggro has been drawn towards the Doombringer. Doombringer looks like he's eaten the Alpha Wolf cap. He's picked up an Assault Cuirass, so he's now hitting very hard. But one of the drawbacks with the Doombringer and the Mirana is in order to carry effectively, they both need extreme amounts of farm. Looks like Mirana's going for that MKB. Would have liked to see a Chrysalis. It's a much more cost-effective item, or even that Maelstrom once again to help deal with the Meepo. King Killer uses that Shadow Dance to wisely escape. Hangs around. He wants another kill. He's got that Pounce up. He's got that Dagon up. Pounces into his Doom. Feeds 3 kills to the Dire side. But at this point in the game, it's not too much of an important factor. Miranda does have that gem. Not too sure if she picked up that up off from the Radiant side, or if they bought it themselves. Meepo is now decided to stack hearts. He's picked up a secondary Reaver. He is fat as fuck. He's sitting about 3.7k HP, so each of his Meepos are extremely hard to bring down. He can effectively solo the entire Dire side at this point in the game. With 34 armor and about 3.4k HP on each of his Meepos, he's just going to go kill Roshan. He might drop his Vladimir's offering to pick up the Aegis, or he might even just deny the Aegis. And it looks like he's just going to do some bad manners, denies the Aegis to the Immortal, just wanted the gold. And King Killer dives to finish off the throne. Looks like the creep's going to finish it off for him. So there you have it, folks. Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Sorry, Horsemen of the Ruckus. Take a pretty... it was a fun game, a very interesting item pickups. Really showcases the power of the Visage Familiars, as well as their Sand King in combination with the Venomancer. And at 42 minutes and 5 seconds, looks like that's game. Just going to take a quick break, and we should be with you shortly.